Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents. I am Tracy S. Phillips, and today I'm speaking with Tracy Clark. She is the 2020 and 2022 winner of the G.P. Putnam Sons Sue Grafton Memorial Award, as well as the 2022 Sue Paretsky Award. Her award-winning Cass Raines Chicago Mystery Series, featuring ex-cop turned PI Cassandra Raines, and her Detective Harriet Foster series both feature two tough, smart African-American female characters working the mean streets of the Windy City. Hyde, book one in her Detective Harriet Foster series, made the Associated Press's top 10 book lists for audible.com. And Hyde has also just won the 2024 Anthony Award for Best Paperback Original. When not writing, multi-nominated Anthony Lefty, McCavity, Edgar, and Shamus Award finalist Tracy Clark is watching old black and white movies, reading, or just puttering around. And I hear that she can toss a fictional dead body anywhere and make it work. Welcome, Tracy.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Good. It is so great to finally talk to you about your books. They are absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I love them. So before we get into today, we're going to talk about Echo mostly, which is coming out in November, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
December the 3rd. It'll be
December 3rd.
yeah.
Okay. Then I get to be a lucky early reader. It's so exciting. It's such a good book.
Thanks.
And before we get into it, I want to introduce Harriet Foster. She is your protagonist in this series, and she is as tough as Kevlar. Um, and from the opening pages in Hyde, she is grieving her partner's sudden death, right? G, or Glynis, was killed before the series started. So, can you set this up for the readers?
Well, when we meet Harriet and Hyde, she's at her lowest point. She's not only experienced that loss, but 5 years before that, she's lost her only son to street violence. So she's still processing that. And on top of that, we have the loss of her partner. And when we meet her, she's standing on the street in front of the police station, not quite sure she wants to go in. I mean, she's done as much as she can do. She's at her lowest point. She's not sure if she has it anymore to do it. I'm giving her a new station, a new boss, a new team, a new partner that she does not want. And so that's a good point to put a character, first of all, to see at their lowest point, to see where they go from there, whether they sort of just wither away and die, or whether they move forward. We hopefully they will move forward. That's what we want characters to do. But Harriet's not sure where she's going to go, so that's where she is in Hyde. She's also divorced, so she's got a lot of things to deal with. And on top of that, I give her the worst possible case she can possibly have right off the bat, and plus a partner who is not really, something that she wants to deal with at that point in time. So I've piled everything on her at that point. All this loss, all this grief, this sense of responsibility, and then we go. And then I give her the case that nobody wants, no cop wants. Somebody's out there killing young women with red hair. And I mean, in a city with 2.5 million people in it, I mean, the suspect list is long. I mean, so she's got all of these things, sort of monkeys on her back that she's got to deal with, and then we just sort of go. I just put her on the page, and we'll see what happens to her. So that's how Hyde starts. That's where Harriet is at that point, and then we just see where she is.
She is, and we find out that she's pretty resilient, although she's hurting. Yeah,
Yeah, because when we all have suffered loss, right? And we handle it different ways.
right.
And Harriet has sort of gotten to a point where she's just stuck. She's moving forward, she's still doing her job, but she has not moved in 5 years, emotionally or physically even. She even bought the house that overlooks the place where her son was killed. Now, there's nothing in the house. She's got a chair, maybe. Her refrigerator is empty. She doesn't have any paintings in the wall, maybe one lamp for illumination, and she is stuck. She's moving forward in her job, brilliant at it, can find those killers, no problem. And then when she gets home and takes that badge and that gun off, she's stuck. And so that's where she is. And it's a fun place for writers to sort of be, because now we sort of dig in to the emotional parts of characters and figure out what they're made of. How much can I give her and have her sort of either, just sort of die off and do whatever, or do something about it. And so when we meet Hyde, she hasn't decided whether or not she's ready to do something about it.
Right. And so then you're giving her a new homicide investigation team and a new partner, Vera Lee. I like Vera a lot. She's a little bit of a counterpoint, but she also really pushes Harriet.
She sees her right off the bat. I mean, she comes into that station and we give her that character, I mean, that partner that she probably doesn't want to work with. Lee sees her and she sort of knows what's going on. Everybody knows her story at this point. She's not coming to the station when nobody knows what happened to her. They know what happened. So Lee is sort of seeing her, sort of sees what she needs, and she sort of comes in there with a hot dog and chips and sort of establishes that relationship. But she's very intuitive, Lee is. She knows sort of what Harriet is sort of dealing with and what she might need to sort of dig herself out of that hole. And so she's there to sort of serve that purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that she's that she does see Harriet. I've got a frog in my throat. Sorry. Um, in Hyde, if there's a serial killer who leaves lipstick marks on the bodies, and in Fall, you have another serial killer who's stalking the city's alderman. But in Echo, book 3, this book is more about justice, retribution, and vengeance, where past events are really linked to the book's present day. And then, so you can you set up Echo for our audience?
Well, yeah, Echo is about a murder that sort of links to a murder that happened 30 years prior to that. Takes place on a college campus in sort of a fraternity house. And I have killed off the heir of a billionaire, his son. But that murder links to something that happened some time ago. And this team of homicide detectives have to figure out what that link is, and figure out who did it. And it does sort of explore difference between justice and revenge. Justice means something to other different people. My sense of justice might be different from yours. And this killer is sort of killing for a very specific reason. They or he or whoever are not out there just sort of willy-nilly, taking this kid. This kid is specific. The reason is specific. And we sort of deal with the sort of gray areas of what justice is, what revenge is, and it's I kind of like it. I kind of sort of liked sort of digging into that because justice is different. And it was different for the killer.
For sure. A lot different than Harriet's sense of justice, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, she's out there sort of being the police, and her sense of justice is the law. But even in her case, where justice might be a little bit mutable in terms of the person who killed her son, she's dealing sort of with the same thing the killer is dealing with. And she sort of has to put her mind around that. I mean, there's the law, there's justice, as she sees it from a professional point of view, and then there's the personal justice. And, she might be a little wonky on that one because she sort of feels kind of what the killer feels. But she can't sort of realize that because, she's got a job to do.
Right, she does. And on top of that, I mean, Harriet's still carrying this other baggage. And then there's really two crimes going on in Echo, which
Mhm.
is I really like the title and how that plays with the themes in the books. Um, but there's a stalker who's definitely watching Harriet.
Yeah, I love creepy. Creepy's good.
Yeah.
Creepy keeps me interested, and I hope it keeps the readers interested. But
Oh, I mean,
there's nothing worse than knowing that there's somebody out there who wants to do something to you, and you never know where it's coming from, what angle, what time of day, when. It's just sort of looming there. So on top of all of this other stuff she's got to deal with, she's got this little thing in the back of her, knowing that somebody's out there watching her, wanting her, and ready to pounce.
he's leaving little notes
Right.
and
Oh, what else can she possibly deal with? I don't know. I'll find something.
You're very good at torturing your protagonist.
I know, I love it.
Um, and but Echo opens and it's like this scene from like a cult movie or something like that.
Mhm.
I want you to talk about that that sort of cult scene. It was so creepy.
Well, I saw when I sort of envision Echo, because I'm not an outliner, so I don't know, how things are going to end up. But I saw those four figures first off. So that's where it started in my head. And so that's what I put on the page. We have four people standing outside of what sort of amounts to a fraternity house. A party's going on inside. It's the middle of the night or close to it. And these four figures have a mission, and their quarry, their prey, I mean, is inside this house, unaware that they are coming. And so they are in their dark robes, their faces are hidden, and they decide that this is what they're going to do. This is the time they're going to do it, and let's go.
Yeah,
And again, we're talking about memories and vengeance and justice and
yeah,
retribution, which are interesting concepts to sort of deal with. How far or how long will people wait to sort of get what they think they deserve? Is 30 years enough? Is 50 years too much? It doesn't matter. It's personal. And so these people have a mission to do, and the person is in there, and they're going to get it done. So that's how Echo starts.
yeah,
Um, and the body appears where the body appears, and then the cops come in, and Harriet has got and Vera and all the rest of the team have to figure out what the heck is going on.
exactly. Now, in this book and in Hyde, you've written from the point of view of the killer. And it's not a real comfortable space for a lot of authors. I was talking to my critique group this week, and they were like, "Oh no, not me." How do you do that, Tracy?
I love it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's so outside of what we are, right? I mean, most of us are well-developed, civilized people. We follow the laws. We know the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, hopefully. But the killers are operating from a different angle, aren't they? I mean,
Mhm.
they have just sort of taken society and said, poo with that. I have something that I need to get done that's going to make me full and even and that's what they how they operate. So it's getting inside that kind of a head where you don't have those guardrails or those guidelines or all of those, oh, is this the right thing to do? Or a killer doesn't care. A killer is killing for their specific reasons. They don't know they're evil. They might be really twisted or dark or whatever. But according to their sort of psyche, they're doing all right. I mean, they're just operating the way they need to operate. Now, whether or not it operates in the qualms of society, that's something different. I mean, that they don't, that's for somebody else to worry about. But they're killing for very specific reasons to sort of fill themselves up for whatever twisted thing is going on in their mind. And they're operating as killers might operate. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to sort of get into that, not sort of paying attention to, oh, is this the right thing to do, or will I feel guilty later? I mean, yeah, it's kind of fun. I
It's
mean,
a really interesting perspective, though, because sometimes all of those dark thoughts. I mean, you're kind of role playing in a way when you're
yeah,
writing, right?
exactly that. And we all have dark thoughts, right? But we're civilized enough to say, oh, well, that's probably not going to work out once I go out of my side of my house, right? But killers don't have that. They're going out there to kill.
Yeah, it's true.
It's fun. Try it.
Yeah. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about the other thread too, with the stalker, because um, it was Glynis who had committed suicide in book one. That's what they determined. And that would left really things very unresolved for Harriet. She didn't feel that was happening. She said that is not, she couldn't believe it. But but I think in this book, it comes out that maybe that possibility is not the
No,
case
I
anymore.
think she
I'm
sort of
trying not to give too much away.
I think she sort of proves it to herself that she was right all along. I think that was what happens in the other books. She knew Glynis very well. They had worked together for a very long time. They were almost family. They were family. When you get pretty close to your partners, don't you? Cops do.
Yeah.
And so they become family. And so she knew when this thing happened that no, there was absolutely no way that it went down like that. And
Mhm.
nobody else would sort of believe that or, well, accept that because they figure out, it's your partner. You don't want to think that, but she knows Glynis or she knew Glynis. And so she keeps picking at it, picking until she gets the answers that she needs. And that sort of follows through the series. It comes to a resolution, I think, in Echo a little bit. A little tail of it might end up in the next book. But she sort of gets the answers that she needs, the ones that she figured she would get. And so, yeah, Harriet is a digger, and she's going to dig until she gets the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I love how she operates too, from her job standpoint. And it seems like everyone that they interview at first about the boy's murder in Echo, that has something to hide. And even the girls who discovered the boy claim to be, oh, we were just going for a walk at 6 o'clock in the morning. Um,
In February.
Right, because everybody does that, right? And so I mean, we learn the truth later, but the scenario seems so real. I mean, when the police come asking you questions about uh, situation, I feel like people would have a tendency to, hide the truth. So, do you feel like that's a really common thing in your research?
Yeah, I mean, most people lie to the cops for various reasons. They might be lying because they had something to do with whatever the crime is. They might be lying to protect somebody else. They might be lying to sort of make themselves look better. They lie for a very variety of reasons. But I think most of the times, if you will talk to police officers, they will tell you that most of the time when they speak to people, they're getting lies. And it's up to them, their job is to figure out which lie they need to pull at and where the truth actually is. Uh, I've talked to a lot of cops. I've got some in my family. They're sitting around my Thanksgiving table. I hear the stories, and they will lie. People will lie to the cops. They know it. That's why they're so world weary, because they know when they go out there and knock on that door, they're going to get a lie first. Then they're going to have to come back again, maybe to sort of crystallize it a little bit and maybe get a little bit more truth the second time or third time or whatever. But that's their job. That's what they do. That's the mountain they have to climb. And they're out there every day listening to the lies and trying to find out where the truth is in all of that mound of falsehood.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes a lot of sense. I don't know any police officers, so my experience is really limited that way. You're lucky to have a leg up on the mystery writing for from a research standpoint.
Weird
Um,
stories.
is that how I mean, how do you get the policing details right?
You listen. Cops are just people with badges and guns on. They've got mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers. And so you listen to the stories. I've been listening to them for, several years now. Some gory, some not so gory, but some funny, some not so funny. But you sort of get a rhythm of the job they do, how they sort of approach it, how they talk about it. They sort of hide some of the really terrible things with humor, right? That cop humor.
Yeah,
That's a way of them to sort of deal with it. It's a tough job. I
yeah,
mean, take anybody who in their right mind would go into an alley at 2 o'clock in the morning, knowing that there's somebody at the other end who might kill them, who might shoot them. And they want to go home just as much as anybody else wants to go home. And so it's a tough job. Divorces are high, suicides are high, the stress level is high. And we're asking these people to do a tremendously difficult job under tremendously difficult situations. And they're out there every single day doing it. So
yeah,
there's good ones. There's some that shouldn't be cops, and those we need to get rid of. But most of the people out there are hardworking folks, and they're
yeah.
doing what they need to do to keep people safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we should honor them a lot better than we do
Yeah.
because they are doing a really tough job. Um, so towards the end of the story in Hyde, there are a few twists and turns. I won't give anything away. Um, but do you plan for those twists? Are you a plotter or pantser, basically, is what I want to
Um,
know.
Panther, I can sort of see the benefit of plotting, and I kind of admire the people who have these elaborate outlines and know exactly where the story's going. Um, I think they're probably taking the smarter route. It's just that my brain doesn't work that way. I sort of meet my characters on the page, and I sort of feel my way along. I sort of feel the rhythm of a story. Stories have a rhythm, and I know that if I get to a point where things are sort of lagging, that I have to do something. I just can't leave it there. So it has to feel that it's sort of moving forward at a really good clip and a good pace. And those lagging points during the middle where everything sort of gets muddled a little bit, you have to work on that, especially hard instead of the beginning and the end. And so I know those going in, and I just sort of write till I get stuck, and I get stuck often. Find a way to get out of that corner that I've painted myself in, and sort of feel it along, making sure the rhythm sort of works. And if I get to the end and the story sort of feels complete, then I've won. Of course, you have to go back and revise and revise and revise, but at least you have a full thing that you can work on. So I
Exactly.
don't plot it out. I don't know what's going to happen, chapter 15 until I get to chapter 15 and figure out what chapter 14 said. And then I go that way. So it's two steps forward, one step back always. And then by the time I get to the end, I'm so tired of this whole thing. I don't want to see it again. But again, you have to go back, many times and sort of firm it up and make sure that it sort of shines. But as long as I got that complete thing, I know I've got something to work with. I can do the other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about rhythm a lot. And are you a musician?
No,
No?
no, I
I,
just feel it. You can feel it. I don't know how to explain it. It's just I can feel when something has to go there.
right. Exactly. And maybe that's from reading a lot.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah. So you have a sense of the story and where it should go. I am a musician, and so I kind of do that too. You have this feeling that, where the rhythm of the
Mhm.
book should be. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and so I also heard that it took several years for you to get your first book into the hands of an agent.
Yep.
I am still struggling with that. So what advice would you give to authors who are struggling and or in the query trenches?
Well, you just have to keep going. It took me over 20 years to get published. I started in college and I wrote all the way through, revising and throwing things out and putting things in. And it took over 20 years until I got that we want to publish your book. But you have to keep yourself sort of motivated to do it, because those rejection letters are hard. I mean, once you've gotten your maybe 15th or 16th one, you're sort of at a point where you just want to chuck everything. Uh, don't do that. If you sort of want to write, you feel that that's your thing, you have belief in the story that you've written, and think that you've got something there that you just have to work on it a little bit more. Work on it a little bit more. Stick with it. The only way you sort of lose is if you give up. And if it takes 5 years or 10 years or 20 years in my case, that's how long it takes.
Yeah.
And you will find at the end that if you stick it out, whenever that time comes, that will be the perfect time. That's the one you worked for towards, and all of those other years aren't wasted because all those years you've learned something. You've gotten a little bit further in the process. You've learned how to write a novel. You've learned how to revise a novel. You learned how to stick with a novel. So it's not wasted time. It just took longer than you wanted it to, but that is as long as it was meant to be for you. So that would be my advice for young writers out there or new writers. Just keep writing, keep moving forward. And if you believe in it, stick with it and it'll come.
Yeah, that is fantastic advice, and it's so true. Yeah, I feel like the world is full of impatient people these days, or
Sure.
needing immediate gratification.
And even I went through a period, I mean, maybe 5 or 6 years in, I said, oh, I can't take another rejection letter. And I put actually the book I was working on in a drawer for 2 years, and it sat for 2 years without me touching it. But I knew it was there. It was talking to me. They knew it was in the drawer. And if you're a writer, then you write. And if it takes you 2 years or 5 years or whatever, yeah, that's what you have to do. So
Yeah,
you have to pick it back up, dust it off, and try again. And if you have
that's
to
right.
try 50 times instead of 60 times or whatever, then that's what you do. Because you're a writer, because that's what writers do.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, Tracy. Where can our audience find you or your books?
Well, I've got a website, Tracy Clark Books. Check it out. My books are everywhere, independent bookstores everywhere. So check it out. Let me know how you like them. Send me a message. I like talking to readers all the time. So yeah, I'm out there pecking away
Yeah,
without an outline.
this is great. And I highly, highly recommend your books. They're
Thank you
awesome.
very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for talking today.
Bye bye.